Women are powerful creators. The Align Women podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Amy Evans. I have authentic, intimate conversations with my guests that highlight their paths to success, their struggles and accomplishments, and the things that currently excite, motivate, and inspire them to turn their visions into reality. Welcome to the Align Women podcast. I'm Amy Evans, your host and the founder of Align Women, which is a leadership and networking organization for professional women. The podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated innovation and agency in their personal and professional lives. With me today is Susan Ryder. Susan's the Vice President of Employee Benefits and Human Capital Strategies at Gregory and Appels Insurance, which is a risk management consulting firm in Indianapolis, Indiana. She's a human capital strategist, and I love this. She's known for disrupting the status quo, which we need a lot of in the insurance industry. I know Susan through our mutual involvement with the National Association of Health Underwriters, and she's currently serving as the Vice Chair for Professional Development. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
So let's get into the questions. In addition to being an employee benefits broker at Gregory and Appel, you're also part of a diversity and inclusion task force within the agency. Tell me about the implementation of that task force. Why was it established? And particularly, how does it impact the daily operations of the agency?
Sure. So the task force was formed a few years back when we were going to be transitioning from the fourth generation to the fifth generation of Appel leadership.
Wow.
And Andrew had, through the course of everything that he's done with his leadership training, really dove into diversity, inclusion, and equity. And one of the things that he realized right away was the fact that not only is the workforce changing in Indianapolis, but the workforce that we're dealing with on a daily basis is also changing. And so we need to become more educated and aware of how we can maybe think about things differently so that we can recruit talent in a slightly different way. And so we developed a task force spearheaded by a vision of Andrew's, but then further enhanced by our human resource manager. And then she picked individuals based on who was interested. So they put out a survey to inquire who would be interested in participating on the task force, and it's evolved over time and changed. And then we've sort of divided and conquered different activities throughout our agency and our community that all tie back to those initiatives.
Got it.
So I think one of the,
Go
I think one of the best things that we did is we started with creating the mission and vision of our task force so that everything that we would do from an activity perspective or a programming perspective, even educating our staff, would tie back to all of those. And I think that's key.
Absolutely. And how many employees does your firm have?
We have approximately 140 employees. I don't know the exact current count.
And how many people are currently serving on the task force?
Depending upon the meeting, we have 12 to 15 members of our team.
Got it. I imagine it feels like a passion project for everyone if you put out a survey and let people express their interest in participating.
Yeah, so one thing, that we felt was really important is the inclusion aspect. And so the only way you can include all is to allow opportunity for people to serve.
Sure. And how does having that task force in place within the agency affect your operations? How does it affect your hiring? How does it affect the way that you make projects available within the firm? I know when you and I spoke previously, there was a particular example you gave me of someone who I believe was working in the mailroom, and you found an opportunity for her through the efforts on this task force.
Yeah. So what you are alluding to is that, one of the things that I like to do is just to get to know other people within different departments so that we're not siloed. And sometimes you come across a subject matter expert that you had no idea that was an interest. And so you find their passion. And for this individual, her passion was human resources. Well, it just coincidentally at the time, we were expanding our human capital consulting efforts. So we were able to bring her along during her senior year, or not senior year, but I guess it is senior year of her undergrad program, and brought her under the human capital piece. And so different projects would help her through her initiatives that she had to do for school. But then now when she's graduated, she's able to do more and more projects to help our clients.
That's wonderful that you were able to connect with her on a human level and then find out what she was interested in. And I imagine you have first very young energy that you are bringing into your human capital department. And I know just generally in our industry, in the insurance industry, recruiting young people is a big challenge. And so that was a wonderful way for you to find a young person to bring in. And you probably have someone who's incredibly dedicated to the firm because of the interest that you've shown in her career.
Well, and to really go one step further, she is someone who is visually impaired. So by simply getting her an adaptable computer, she's been able to thrive at our agency. So I think it's not just about generational hiring, but it's about hiring in a different way that's intentional. So giving folks, who have developmental disabilities or things such as visual impairment or hearing impairment situations an opportunity to thrive in any type of business. There's always some type of role or project that we need assistance with. And that's just part of our culture and our mission in our agency. We have a woman that's worked with us for a very long time who's autistic. And so we just find projects that make her shine in the agency. And she's been there over 26 years. So that's pretty remarkable for an insurance agency, quite frankly.
That is absolutely. And what you explained really leads us to the next question that I have for you. So in addition to promoting diversity and inclusion within your own agency, as a human capital strategist, you work with clients to consult with them to bring diversity and inclusion awareness into their business. Mm-hmm. So tell me about the human capital strategist part of what you do and what kinds of training and development opportunities you provide to your clients.
Sure. So what we have heard, I started on the employee benefit spectrum. I still do employee benefit consulting, but I also do human capital consulting. And what that really means is that when there is an opportunity from a client or prospect where they articulate a pain point, we try to find a solution that fits. And so one of those is cultural awareness. A lot of people are saying that it is a pain point for hiring, not just from a recruiting perspective, but also from a retention perspective. And people want to feel like they are part of the team, not just sort of in a position. And so we've tried to find very meaningful work while educating people about cultural differences, differences with people with disabilities. I, as an example, have ADD and I have learning disabilities, and I've been very transparent about that. And I've still been able to succeed and move up the ladder. So I think just more and more of us that share our stories, we all realize that everyone has their strengths.
Absolutely. And I imagine there are a lot of people who have disabilities like that who are people are not aware that they do, and they've been successful in their roles. And by being transparent about your situation, you're actually opening the door for people to be more comfortable talking about theirs, and then finding solutions that make everybody, I love the word you use, that make everybody thrive.
Yep. I think it's also important that while you're, looking at folks that might not have opportunities elsewhere, we've also done a lot of recruiting in regards to folks from other nationalities, folks that have veteran status. So there's this huge pipeline of folks that are super talented, and it's just changing the culture of any organization, ours or a client, through training and education to open their eyes to other opportunity.
Yeah. So in addition to all of that, you also started a mentoring program within your agency last year. What was the need that you saw that motivated you to take that on? And what are the results that you saw after the first year?
Great question. So for the last few years, we've had a lot of change in the agency. We've had exponential growth. We always grow organically. We're not up for sale, as Andrew says. We're fiercely independent. But we've had, of course, change the way in which we service our clients. And through that, and hiring differently, maybe hiring people with little or no insurance background, we needed a training mechanism for some soft skill development. And we have very talented, I'll call them seasoned, wise folks that have a lot of knowledge. And then so for perpetuation purposes and succession planning, really getting that knowledge and sharing it with the next generation of our talent pool was important. And so myself and then our chief operating officer and our human resource manager as a team, we created a business plan that presented the facts that we had uncovered through our research as to why we had the need. And then we put together a plan of actionable steps to make it come to fruition. So in about 10 months, we had the program built for the pilot program. We opened it up to everybody, again, being all inclusive, and then folks had the opportunity to apply if they wanted to participate, either as a mentor or as a mentee. And it was a 10-month program where everyone met with their mentee or mentor at least once a month for an hour. It was presented to management as sacred time. So they could be excused from other meetings. They could be excused from other work, and that was their dedicated time to grow professionally. And then at the end, we had a graduation ceremony to supplement those types of things, because not everyone has been in a formal mentor relationship before. We provided quarterly training for both the mentee and mentor to ensure that it was successful.
And what kind of results did you see after the first year? How many people participated?
So we had approximately 20 participants, so that was pretty good for the first year. And then what we've seen from that is now some of our mentees from 2019 are mentors now in 2020, which is really the result that we wanted, right? So to pay it forward. And then we're seeing some of those soft skills actually utilized in the work that people are doing every day with our clients.
That's wonderful, and as you mentioned, the program was so successful in 2019. Now you've rolled it over again into 2020, and I imagine it's something that you're hoping will continue from year to year.
Yep, we hope so.
It's fantastic. So the last question is a little more personal, and you've already been very transparent on this topic. One of my mentors asks the question, what's the wrong you want to right in the world, or what's the hurt that you want to heal? And your passion for diversity and inclusion comes from personal experience. You mentioned being successful in business with learning disabilities. And I know you were very open about that recently at a National Association of Health Underwriters event. Tell me about what that experience, tell me how that experience has informed your participation in the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force, and how you also brought that into your involvement with the National Association of Health Underwriters.
Sure. So it was a very interesting self-growth moment. I was given approximately 11 hours to prepare to go on national stage and to talk about myself, which is not easy to do. And so I was like, well, what do all of these people at Health Underwriters that I talk to on a regular basis not know about me? So that was the challenge. And so I dug really deep, and I thought, what do I have to lose at this point? So I shared my story about how I grew up with learning disabilities and ADD, and how I've overcome different challenges that have maybe kicked me sideways a little bit, and then how I've, just moved forward or moved past them to get to where I am today. And what was really interesting about that experience was all the individuals that have since come up to me and said, thank you for sharing your story. I wish I fill in the blank. And so I think really just making people aware that just because you're different does not mean that you are not talented, that you are not smart, and that you don't have strengths to contribute to whatever the project is or the office or you name it. And so I guess just bringing awareness and seeing what the outcome of that was really took it to the next level for me, if you will. And then from there, I challenged myself one step further and went on stage with my peers and did Disrupt HR Indie, which was even more challenging because you only have 5 minutes, not 15 minutes. And you've got to be very thoughtful in the words that you use. And it's not as easy as people think.
That's you give me goosebumps when you talk about that. I understand the experience of getting on stage, and I'm sure you've spoken in front of large groups of people and given presentations, and your experience might be similar to mine. All the presentations I had ever given up until last year at the California Association of Health Underwriters Women's Leadership Summit, all presentations I had ever given were technical. They were regarding employee benefits. They were educating people on social media. I had spoken on national stages. I had done national webinars. And then last year, I chose to step out of my comfort zone and speak about very, very personal things at the Women's Leadership Summit. And it was a very defining moment for me. And I understand what that's like to step out on stage and do that. I'm so moved that you were willing to do that in such a short period of time. Maybe that worked to your benefit, that you didn't have too long to think about it.
I think that was definitely an advantage for me. I'm not generally someone that rehearses a lot. I look through my notes, but the more I practice, I tend to stumble. Yeah. And so for me, having a shorter period of time, I couldn't think about it. It was just sort of transactional, and then it happened. So it worked out well. People learned something new about me. It was a vulnerable moment, and it's just afforded me different opportunities going forward. I got to speak at a global HR conference, which was fun, and I may not have been able to do that had I not had these other situations happen. So
sure, they all build on each other. So
they do.
Tell me where people can find you if they're interested in connecting with you.
Sure. So I am on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So just follow me, and I'm happy to share anything that I learn.
Wonderful. And we'll post all of your contact information in the show notes on the Align Women podcast webpage. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me on the Align Women podcast today, Susan. It has been really lovely to be able to share your story with our audience. And look for more episodes with more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Align Women podcast. You can find more episodes with more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com. And visit alignwomen.org to learn more about our leadership and networking organization. This is Amy Evans, and you've been listening to the Align Women podcast.